What's up, guys? Good morning and welcome to another office hour. Today I'm starting at 10 a.m. Like I scheduled. Just 10 minutes late, but I'm ushering in a new era in which I keep all of my streaming appointments. So I'm going to rain or shine, tired or not, I will come here. Today you might be noticing my face a little puffy. That's because I woke up like 30 minutes ago. It's not a good look, but I'm keeping my time because from now on, like even if I'm flexible with my time, even if I don't do it at the same time every day, I still want to, for the people who do wait, and apparently there are some of you, I want to be respectful of that. So that's office hours. Timing. Now let's get into the comments on YouTube since yesterday, and there were a couple. So let's get right into it. All right. The second passage was way too dense. Can you go over specific details in a separate video? I don't think I'll make a separate video because I want to keep the momentum going with like I'm waiting for this coffee to kick in. Okay, but I'm basically waiting for. I want to keep. What am I saying? I want to keep the momentum going. So I probably won't make a separate video. At least I can't do that. But I can talk about some of the details of the experiment setup. Good. So let me just pull. I kind of like, you know how like my voice is like sleepy voice. It just reminds me so much of Elizabeth Holmes right now. It's actually bothering me. Like my voice is bothering me a lot. But okay, let's just ignore that for a moment. Where are we? Okay, this is about the second passage. What? Is this the second passage? Oh no, that's the first passage, huh? Okay. That's still the first passage. So, okay, here. Okay, second passage. Let's go figure this out.
Three, two, one, let's go. History. No, it's not history. How can coach not too hard? It's dating, extreme politics, okay. Prosaic details, stuff. So I have seen passages before. I've seen both. I'm going to get that scene. I feel like I've seen all of them. Like, I don't recognize them immediately when I see it. Like I've seen first, I don't know what immediately is on YouTube. Okay. There's a lot of teachers who do know that, right? When I used to teach English after a couple years, I practically memorize all passages. I keep teaching passages over again, right? So it's my second time reading passage, but it's still funny enough that it should feel real when I do it. Okay. So I'm no longer teaching the content of the stream. So guys, as you know, I've seen all the passages before. At least
I will turn the captions on so that you can follow. Oh,
3, 2, 1, let's go.
the captions have not processed yet, so no captions at the moment. Well, I'll slow down. It was at 3.3 speed. I'll slow down to 2.8.
How I see the multiple articles, details, content policies, must take composition of these issues, but they are not reason, which takes hard work. They instead they go for simple definition and assume wrongly on the nuances. Okay, reason positions versus nuances. Okay, and prosaic details are this is 1240. How is the name for this?
I'm gonna force the quality to 1080. Okay.
The illusion of scientific depth. We strongly believe that we understand complex things, but in fact, these are false entry, and in fact, we're not men. We're dumb. That's a good question. It's impossible to shake. Firm bug. Want to explore?
Okay, so here's my first thing, right? Hypothesis. I can't do a video, or I can't promise. because I want to keep the momentum going with the QAS Solve Lives series playlist.
Forcing people to explain in detail might force them to confront their ignorance. Okay, cool. And we can.
Hypothesis. If I force you to write out your if you take an on a policy issue, if I force you to write out
Industry stands. Yeah, 13.5.
you will become more moderate in your views. This will improve society. This will improve society on some way. Let me just double check how this improves society. This will reduce false extreme beliefs in society caused by what's called the illusion of explanatory depth. Okay. And just double checking. Design.
Reason positions versus nuances. Okay, and prosaic versus firm up. One to E. This is experiment design. Variety of issues. Flat packs to concentrate for carbon emissions. Elaborate emissions. Okay.
Experiment 1. Rate how well I understand an issue. Explain the issue in detail, then rate again. Understanding again. Experiment 2. As as participant. I rate
okay. Vertical and vertical abstraction in United States.
What the?
Last flight I made a stream on 2018 April school day. So yes, the illusion of we strongly like it's kind of like semi-casual and I kind of and the reason that is they became what it is. Nice. Being forced to articulate nuts and bolts is not the same. Is not the same as trying to sell.
False. Extreme overconfident beliefs. All right.
In fact, talking about is not tricking them, but it's right. Talking is selling. It's the same thing. But deliberate analysis is nuts and bolts.
Analyze and explain. Oh, maybe I missed. Okay, there's two figures and I might have missed a bit of detail. Give me a sec. Okay, as a participant, I read how strongly I feel about an issue and how well I understand it. Rate my position. Okay, how strongly? I'm going to just say support. My support and understanding again. As per the rate. How well? How strong? Okay, yeah. Okay, so. Okay. If my support okay, that's my overview. Let me know if you let me know what lines you start feeling confused on, or like you're missing something, then I could be more specific to your issue. I could speak more specifically to your All right, so that's my write-up on the April 2018, I think? 2019 passage 2. Yep. So, At this moment, I'll just briefly talk about this other topic that's kind of recurring to me, and I'm kind of figuring out how to talk about it more effectively, or more persuasively, not effectively. Sorry, just waking up. But this topic is how do I? So the simple name for this topic would be good questions, but I think I could come up with a different name for this topic, which is how questions is actually part of the learning process. How to ask questions so that you learn more by asking. Is that too complicated? It's kind of complicated. Questions that improve your own learning. Okay, something like that. So this the idea that I'm getting at, some of you may already be able to predict it, is that when there's two kids, okay, let's say there's like a Jimmy and a Johnny, right? They might both be struggling with the same thing, but the way that they ask their question about that thing actually will change how fast they learn. Like if Jimmy goes, hey, I don't get this. How do you solve this? Okay. And if Johnny goes, I don't see how this word over here connects to this word, because doesn't this mean blah, 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 okay? I think you can already tell, right? What Jimmy did is way easier, and what Johnny did is a lot harder. Because what Johnny did is, it's more work because you have to learn, you have to think about, you have to simulate yourself going through the answer on your own, and you have to be able to explain what part specifically it is you're stuck on, rather than just saying that you are having trouble with the whole thing. So in a weird way, going back to this passage, actually, specificity, right? Concreteness is what this passage was talking about. That's kind of what I'm talking about right now. Being specific with exactly your process of getting to the answer, and then specifically telling someone who might know better what your problem is, that itself is a learning experience. And when you start doing this, what you'll start realizing is that you can actually teach yourself the right answer maybe 2 or 3 out of 5 times. It depends on the kinds of questions you're asking. It depends on every student, but like, at least in my experience, I've had this experience where back when I was a student, but also even like probably even recently, I can't think of an example right now, but like I have a question about something, and I try to formulate it into a good question, and then by asking the question, I answer my own question. like I've had that experience, and as a result, kind of the paradox is that some of the smartest students in class, they look like they don't ask a lot of questions, right? And the assumption is that it's because they already know the answer, and that's only half true. One of the reasons why some of the smart kids are not asking a lot of questions in class is not because they're not trying. It's actually the opposite. They're trying to ask questions, but then they just solve it on their own, and they don't want to waste, and they're too polite to waste other people's time because they're scared or whatever, and so they don't ask it afterwards because they figured it out. So maybe that's a better title: The Paradox of Not Asking Questions. Okay, no, that's not a very good title, but you want to be trying to ask a better question, because that itself is learning. It's a learning experience. Okay, so that's my little spiel on questions. So So, for example, if I were subs, I mean, and by the way, subs is not asking a bad question. I mean, this is fine. I'm not saying that these kinds of questions are bad for you. They're better than not asking a question, right? So there's like levels, right? At the top level is maybe you formulating a very specific question, through the process answering it for yourself, and then after that, instead of making it a question, you could be like, you could actually share your reasoning process. Oh, dude, I was stuck on this, but I think I solved it by, and then write your reasoning, dot dot dot, and then maybe just do a confirmation. Does that sound right to you guys, right? And then that would be like the top level where you've already had your question, you've tried to answer your question, you're pretty sure it's the right answer, and you just confirm it. Okay, that's like the very top. And then the very bottom of like effort is something like you see something, you don't understand it, and then you're like, too hard for me, and you move on, and you don't ask a question, you don't do anything. Okay, and so over here, subs is asking somewhere in the middle level where he's actually specifically requesting. It's not something like, why is it A? It's not like that. He's actually trying to understand the experiment itself. So he's kind of more in the middle right now, he or she. I've always assumed that subs is he, but anyway, they're kind of in the middle right now with the level of specificity. Okay, so I'm not saying these questions are bad at all. I'm not even saying that low effort questions are bad. Sometimes they get kind of annoying to me, but but they're not bad. It's just, how do you learn, right? You learn by being more specific with your questions. How many did I solve? I don't know. I haven't counted. I mean, if you include old SATs, if you include like the pre-2000, was it 16? The pre-2016 SATs, then like more than, including practice tests, like non-official ones. Oh my God, like more than 100. Yeah, I like a lot. And if you also include other tests besides the SATs, then many. But all American reading comprehension tests, they're actually not that different from each other. So I'm actually, one of the things I want to do with this channel is eventually I want to do SAT, ACT, LSAT, because that's really hard and I've done it before, I've taken it before. LSAT, reading comprehension, is I think the hardest probably reading comprehension that's out there for the American university systems. But also the GMAT and GRE, and I guess MCAT must have reading comprehension, so maybe the MCAT reading comprehension, although that might be very medical. But I could try it. For just for fun. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing like the reading comprehension tests across the board, just to see what happens. Maybe I could do SSAT, but I feel like I'm gonna be less useful for like 8th graders. But maybe we could try it. So that's that's my sort of grand plan at the moment. Now I was looking at, okay, so I just covered April 2019, the second passage. Then I covered this idea of the, what do you call it? Of asking better questions for yourself to learn. And right now, Zeki is asking about the difference between US and international tests. And Zeki, I actually answered this on yesterday and last week's office hours. So I will answer it in this office hours too, but I just want to save that. I want to focus on new ideas. So Zeki, I'll come back to the end of the stream, okay? That question I will come at the end of the stream, and if I forget, just remind me. But I will answer it at the very end because it's a repetition of previous questions. So let me go to Cat Meow. hey, I'm going to take the SAT this May. I wonder why it doesn't. I wonder if it's just on this page that code doesn't show. Huh? Is that some Asian language? What is that? Anyway, amazing person. Well, thank you. Should I be really cheesy? We're all amazing in our own ways. Dude. No, that's honestly a little too cheesy. I mean, I think one thing, thank you for the compliment, is the obvious sane person's response to this, but I'm just being super analytical about this because it's my habit. I was thinking about what makes people value what I'm doing, because I'm the kind of person that thinks about these things instead of taking a normal compliment and just being like, thank you, and moving on. Instead of being a normie, I just overanalyze. But I'm thinking about it, and the reason I think it's important is because I don't think what I'm doing is actually that special. I think that all I'm doing is basically what gamers do all the time, which is just stream their process. It's just that what I'm doing is only special because no other teacher is doing it, right? Like if you wanna learn to skateboard, there's so many skateboarding videos of people who are in the middle of learning it, who are pretty advanced at it, and then people who are like professional at it, right? And there's even all their videos of their failures, right? So you can kind of see the process. If you are, if you're trying to learn like gaming, I already mentioned that. If you're trying to learn any sport, if you're trying to learn music, there's so many videos out there of just people practicing getting better, right? And besides videos, the whole instructional approach is by showing you how to do it. That's the only thing I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm just showing you how I read. But it's crazy that. Yeah, it's crazy that what I think is super obvious should be, amazing. So you know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is that I'm hoping for a day where what I'm doing is not amazing. Where what I'm doing, maybe I'm just like the grandfather of what I'm doing, but it's actually, I hope that it becomes the norm. It's just like, yeah, this is how I read, and maybe I messed up here and there, but it's how I read, and how do you read, and then how do we get better? So that's kind of my response to that. Maybe should I write that up? I'll write. I don't know. I think it's overly analytical to write up in a comment, but I did want to share that thought. My aim is to get a 1500 score on the SAT. What's your greatest? I've actually also talked about this, but Zeki, this will be a lot more specific if you can tell me what, like 1500, like what is your desired math score? What is your desired EBRW score? And then within the EBRW, what's your desired reading score and your writing score? And then also let me know what you're strong on and what you're weak on. So if you say that, then I can give you much better advice. Otherwise, I can still give you advice, but it's gonna be pretty generic. So I'll come back to that, Zeki, after a bit, just to see if you just give you some time to type it out. So I'm going to move on to SAT study. I hope this streaming thing becomes... This is me being like mildly autistic and just like forgetting to say thank you. Anyway, I hope this streaming thing becomes so common that it's no longer a special thing, but the norm. This streaming your own reading process. Overly detailed reply. Here we go. Taking the. Oh, I just zoned out. Oh my god. Oh, guys, my brain is. I'm definitely way better than yesterday. Yesterday I was a mess, but yeah, I'm just a little sluggish. I'm looking at Zeki's chat. He said he's trying to memorize a lot of vocabulary. I'll just work with that question right now in the chat. So Zeki, I would say, okay, that if you're weak on the reading section, let's say there are two observations that you have, okay? I'm not sure if this is actually what you're thinking, but I'm just inferring it. I'm just guessing it. Okay, I'm not even quite inferring it. I'm just guessing that it's there, okay? The first observation is, hey, my reading score is not great. And the second observation is, that must be because, the second observation is my vocabulary is not great. So the reasoning now is my reading score is not great because my vocabulary is not great. Well, I think those two observations can be true, but that reasoning could be wrong, okay? It could actually be one of the least important reasons why your reading is not great. So for you, I would strongly suggest that you examine your assumption that your vocabulary is the most important part of the reading score, okay? Because yes, it's necessary to have a decent vocabulary, okay? Yes, it's beneficial to have an amazing vocabulary, but is it worth the time? I also don't know when you're going to take the SAT, so I have no idea. If you're trying to get a 1500 score on the SAT in June versus if you're trying to get a 1500 score next March, if you're trying to get a 1500 score and you're starting at 1400, and if you're trying to get 1500 score and you're starting at 1200, completely different strategies. So completely different advice. I mean, strategy overall is pretty similar, but the advice is very different. So since I don't know what I don't know your current score, so that's still not very meaningful to me. So, but I'm gonna finish what I was gonna say, which is that the vocabulary is not necessarily your greatest weakness. And so especially if you're taking it in May in like a week, memorizing more vocabulary is probably a waste of time. Probably, or at least if out of 100% of your SAT prep, if it's taking up more than 30%, it's probably a waste of time. I would probably drop it. I would instead focus on changing and trying different approaches. So Zeki, you are a repeat viewer, which by the way, thank you for coming back, swinging by every once in a while. I think you know what my approach is, okay? I think you know what the typical approach is. The typical approach is to go to the questions, to mark up the lines, and then to read the passage, and then to try to build connections, and sometimes it depends on, every teacher is kind of different about this, but the really extreme version is to answer the questions one by one. And kind of the middle version is like to read pre-mark up the passage, read the whole passage, and then come back to the questions, right? But you know my approach, right? My approach is read the passage first, have a good map of the passage, and then read the questions, but don't look at the answers, predict the answers to the questions, and then choose the answers. That's my approach. So if you know my approach, and if you know the typical approaches, I think the single most important thing you can do in the next week and a half is to just experiment with both sides. Okay, try what Saul said on a real test, and then try what you just go back and revert to the way that you used to do it, and maybe even try some other person's strategy. Try different strategies, and then just choose one. Be like, this is the best one for me, right? This is the best one for my habits, and then just be confident and choose that one before the real test. That's the single most important thing you can do in the last week. Baikan. I don't know how to pronounce that name. It could be Baisan, Baijan. Was it Baijan? I forget. But if it is Baijan, I'm gonna call you B, just because I'm not totally sure. I don't know if you remember. I do remember you. They worked. They worked. Awesome. Thank you, B. That's awesome to hear that. Now, Zeki also mentioned a couple other things in between, so I'm going to just double check and read what he said. Take it in May. First time. First time, okay. Okay, the important vocabulary to have a better understanding of the passage. Now, again, Zeki, I don't know your vocabulary level. Like, for example, if you don't know words like implicate and like assess, no, assess you should know, right? But like, I don't know what your actually, I kind of wish you would just tell me what your score is right now, because if I knew your score, I could at least imagine what your vocabulary is. But because I don't know, but if you don't know words like implicate, or or presumptuous, those are like mid-high level SAT words, but they're also really important for analytical and like for tonal, like distinctions. So those are pretty critical words. And so if that's the kind of level that you're stuck at, then that means that you've probably been struggling in your high school classes. So if you've been struggling in your high school classes and you're stuck on those words, I'm going to tell you flat out, you are not going to get a 1500. You're not going to get a 700 on the reading and writing this May. Like that is, you need to fundamentally improve your vocabulary over the next like year. Or it depends on how fast you learn, but you need to improve it quick. It's not going to be in the next week. So that's that. So you will need to understand your vocabulary there. As an international student, understand the history passages. I'm seeing Baijan or B. I'm seeing B's question. Understanding old language is hard. I would say, first of all, as an international student, the history passages should be lowest priority for you. Like you should just sort of accept that you're going to get 4 or 5 wrong, and just be at peace. Okay, because being at peace with the history passage and then just doing really well on the science passages is going to make you feel more comfortable. Okay. Because you just sort of accept that, I don't need 52 out of 52 to get 700, right? Depending on how good my writing is, I'm allowed to make at least 4 mistakes on the history passage, 5 mistakes on the history passage, okay? So, depends on what your goal is. So, I would just say the general mental approach, the psychological approach is that you should probably just reduce your expectation on the history passage. But if you want to improve your understanding of history passage over time, and if you have a moderate amount of time, then I would focus more on learning U.S. history, okay, and learning specifically the debates that have occurred throughout U.S. history, specifically debates about democracy, about like federalism versus national, like a national government, about like anti-slavery positions, prohibition. Not prohibition. Prohibition is less more. Sorry, but I just forgot the word for it. But anyway, like anti-slavery positions, for feminist positions throughout history, and even like with modern history, some things about like the United Nations or post-colonial. But these are less frequent. But you still kind of know the generic like debates that occurred throughout history. Specifically starting with like England through the American Revolution. I guess if you really want to broaden it, you can start with like, because there are passages on, no, I don't want to talk about England. No, yeah, but you should just understand the debate positions that have existed in history. And I don't have a write-up on this, and I don't know if anyone does, actually. I haven't looked at reading books in a while, so maybe there's a good sort of like primer, right? Like a sort of short version of kind of the major debates of throughout U.S. history. But knowing those debates and knowing the positions that existed and knowing some of the key figures, right? like Lincoln versus Douglas, like Frederick Douglass, like I don't know, like if you want to go modern U.S. history, like even Reagan, Reagan Thatcher positions. Actually, I have seen a passage on that side of things. Yeah, so like knowing. Oh, and obviously the founding fathers, right, and what they were debating when at the Constitutional Convention before and after, stuff like that. The Constitution itself was a big controversy at its time. So having a general understanding of democracy, feminism, the Civil War, and slavery, pro and anti-slavery, and like some of the modern institutions, just all of that will just benefit you because then you can at least imagine what the argument's about. Okay, so that's that. Finally, going to your actual question, which is old language. Old language, okay? I would emphasize less on, again, memorizing vocabulary is not the best way to learn old language, okay? Old language is not about vocabulary so much as syntax, okay? So this is a highly grammatical thing. If anything, the fastest way to learn to improve your syntax is by reading old poetry. And forcing yourself, every time you read a line of poetry, of old poetry, where they try to force a rhyme and they change up they change up the sort of typical grammatical structure of the sentence, you just have to rewrite it. You just have to rewrite it in your head. Like a simple one would be, because I could not stop for death, death could not stop for me. Now, that's a simple one because all it is a loose sentence. So all you need to do is flip it and then it'll sound more natural. Death could not stop for me because I could not stop for death. That would be the way that people would normally speak, right? People would normally speak by saying the thing and then saying because and then saying the next thing, the reason, right? So, but then there's more complicated ways of doing that. For some reason, I can't think of like a poetry line right off the top of my head, but what I'm getting at is the idea of just untangling the grammar and just resequencing it and putting it back into an order that sounds more like conversational English. And being able to do that really fast is a necessary skill for future reading comprehension, okay? And the SAT is giving you like the advanced look at like basically in college, like if you go to like a top 20 college especially, you're gonna be reading passages that you're not gonna understand. If you can't do the history passage. And the reason you can't do the history passage is not usually because of vocabulary only. It's like vocabulary is important, but it's not the major reason. The major reason is you suck at parsing sentences. Okay, you suck at resequencing sentences that are written in a older formulation, okay, that are sometimes long, and you suck at separating out the modifiers and then and identifying the parallel structure and then breaking them into smaller sentences. And if you suck at that, you're always going to suck at history. And so you do need to work on the grammatical aspects of it quite a bit. Okay, so yeah, those are two major things to focus on. Okay, understand the debates throughout history, the major debates that have existed, and also understand how to parse sentences grammatically and be able to and build up that skill. Okay, so those are two of my responses. Now let me go back to this final comment over here on the page. Let me show you my page. Here we go. Taking the May 7th SAT, I can get full on math. Awesome. SAT is telling me specific scores. Hilarious. SAT study is saying like the same thing that you guys are saying. A cheat sheet. I guess that's the thing. I am like the anti-cheat sheet person. Like my whole identity is your cheat sheet is not helping you. That's my whole approach. So how do I give a cheat sheet when I don't believe in cheat sheets? Guys, let me do a little rant, okay? This rant, I'm gonna keep, right now it's 10:55. I'm not gonna rant for more than 5 minutes, okay? I'm gonna try to keep it to 2 minutes, but quick rant. Or if I wanna use a fancy vocab word, like quick tirade against cheat sheets. Guys, do you know why cheat sheets exist? Literally this passage right here. Where's that passage? This passage is literally talking about that we literally just went over a couple minutes ago, right? 30 minutes ago. The illusion of explanatory depth. Okay? The cheat sheet, the quick tips and tricks are literally the quintessential example of the illusion of explanatory depth. They seem like they're useful because they seem so simple, like I just need to do it, okay? But the thing is, guys, cheat sheets have no understanding of your weaknesses. You know who has an understanding of your weaknesses? Only you do. Only you know your weaknesses. But the funny thing is, actually 90% of you don't even know your weaknesses because you've never actually measured your weaknesses. You've never taken account of your weaknesses. So actually, in the world, there's no one who can genuinely help you because you don't freaking know your own weakness and you're the only one who can. So that means there's 0 people in the whole world that know your weaknesses, right? Change that 0 to 1. Start there. Know your weaknesses. If you know your weaknesses, these cheat sheets will start feeling meaningless to you because they're too broad. They're too broad, right? So I could give you a cheat sheet and they're gonna sound nice and sexy and persuasive because it's just very obvious and simple things. Like, here, I'll tell you my cheat sheet. Read the passage first. Actually, but then the problem with cheat sheets is then I can't give you hard advice. I can only give you easy advice. So you know what I'll do for cheat sheets? I'll just be like, God, I hate this idea. The whole point of a cheat sheet is to make it feel like you're cheating the system, guys. And the way to make it feel like you're cheating the system is by doing things in a way that seems intuitively easier. So what's intuitively easier? You know what's intuitively easier? To go to number 1, look at the line numbers, and then go back to the passage and then mark up the line numbers. That seems like it's supposed to save you time. It actually doesn't, but it seems like it's going to save you time. That's the whole point of a cheat sheet. You know why? Because cheat sheets exist to simplify things because they're trying to help sell the books that they're part of. Like usually they come in, the cheat sheet is like the first page or like the last page of a book, and they're trying to sell you like a $20 book, you know? So they want to look like, oh yeah, if you just know these things, you're gonna be totally fine. But guys, that's not what I'm about. I'm about the actual process. And the actual process is messy, and everyone has a different process. I mean, it's not totally different. They're actually generalizable. But the actual explanations, the real solution to improving your reading isn't going to come through a cheat sheet. It's going to come through understanding your actual weakness. And once you know your weakness, all the stuff that you see in the cheat sheet is going to seem like bullshit. Like bullshit. Okay? Sorry, it's just a bad pun. So I don't have a cheat sheet. I could make a summary of my approach. I think I could do that, and I already have that right now out in the comments. So maybe I'll compile them into a page. But my summary is not easy, right? It's not an easy approach, but it is how you're going to improve. Like many kids have already said they've improved on it. The way that you improve is by reading the passage, trying to predict what the passage is about so that you have a good map of it, then reading the question stem and predicting the answers, and then choosing the answer and using process elimination as a final last resort. Okay? So that's my cheat sheet. All right. It's a lot of work. compared to, I mean, it sounds a lot more complicated than other people's cheat sheets, but it's my approach, and I stand by it because it's helping people improve their reading scores and their writing scores. Okay, new question. Sue. So Sue, I'm looking at your question. Let me just make sure that I've sort of covered everything here. Well, I want Sue. I'll be right back after I say one more thing about the SAT studies question. Okay. And then this question by Sue is going to be my last one because I need to move on. I need to do some more stuff with my day. So it's already 11, so I got to go. But here we go. And so SAT study is saying a lot of things. Okay. The first thing is, I am lacking in English and vocabulary, which sounds like SAT studies an international student. Guys, generally for international students, I strongly recommend that you start getting your science passages down first. Okay, improve your science passages first. And also examine your assumption that it's due to your vocabulary. International students oftentimes have this assumption that their vocabulary is what's holding them back when it's not actually the vocabulary. So go and really assess whether that's really the case. Okay, go back through, like, look at the last packet, look at all the ones you got wrong, and then see how many of them were actually due to you not knowing a specific word. Okay, or if it was because you made assumptions instead. It's probably not because of not knowing the definition. And a really good way of testing that is by taking the test without time limit and with a dictionary. Okay? If you take the test without time limit and with a dictionary and you get the same score, it's not because of your vocabulary. It's not because of your vocabulary. It's because you suck at reading. So improve your reading. All right? I think it was Zeki earlier. I forgot to say this to Zeki, but Zeki, SAT study, and anybody else who thinks that it's because of the vocabulary, take the test with a dictionary. See how your score comes out. If you can get a really good score because of your dictionary, then okay, I guess I lose. You're right. It's because of the vocabulary. But I'm pretty sure it's not. So go and take it with a dictionary. And then the second thing he said is about the cheat sheet, which I just talked about. But my cheat sheet is not really a cheat sheet. It's just a general approach that you need to improve on. And it's not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to improve on it in one day. You might actually see improvements in your score in one day, but actually working on these skills will take time. And so the skill is read the passage first, read the question stem, predict, choose the answer, do process elimination as a last resort. Out of 10 questions, you should only be doing process elimination maximum 2 times. Maximum 2 times. Everything else should be almost like, I see it, I circle it, kind of vaguely double checking the other ones really quickly, and I'm moving on. Right? That's basically it. That's my approach. So you should be able to follow that. Now I'm going back to Sue, and Sue is saying science passages. With science passages, the key thing is, if you really want to improve on your science passages, you have to first understand the structure of science passages. So I talk about this a lot in my streams. So if you watch 2, 3, 4 streams, you'll sort of understand what I mean by this. But my sort of short version right now is you have to know the background for the hypothesis, like where did the hypothesis come from? Then you have to know the hypothesis itself, okay? Then you have to slow down. Stop rushing through the experiment design. Slow down on the experiment design, okay? Or what some people call the methodology. But slow down on the experiment design, the methodology, and actually understand it. And what I mean by actually understand it is every single sentence that you read, you should be calculating, That's how they're designing the experiment. Is that similar to the way I would have designed it? Okay, cool. It's not, but this also works. Okay, then read the next sentence. It's like, oh, okay. So they're measuring this one metric. Okay, so what that means is if this metric is high, if the measurement is high, then that proves the hypothesis, right? Okay, right? So that means if the measurement is low, then it disproves the hypothesis. And so every single sentence, okay, in the experimental method, right, of the design of the study, you should be basically thinking about how it connects to the hypothesis. This will slow down your reading. It will. But do it. Do it. Try it. And see if that makes it a lot better. Basically be stubborn about understanding that part. Now, if there's one sentence that you are confused by and you read it more than 2 times, then put parentheses around it, put a question mark next to it, and just move on, and then come back to it later when the question is asked about it. But at least read it and try to understand how it all connects to the hypothesis once, okay? Then after the experiment design, there's going to be the results and discussion, and make sure that you mark all the positions that are out there. Like if there are people who disagree or people who do agree, make sure you don't lose track of all the names. And one of the ways that I keep track of the names is by writing the initials in the side and the margins. So those are some things that you can see in my stream. But if you understand if you have a good scientific mind, you know how to, like, if you hear a hypothesis, then you automatically start thinking of like experiments that could prove the hypothesis, then you have a good scientific mind, okay? Then that's like 70% of the work. Now the remaining 30% is to actually read it and then compare it against your sort of imaginary version of this experiment and the actual experiment that's on the page, okay? And for you to be able to do that, you have to understand the conventions of science writing. So there's background, hypothesis, design, results, discussion, okay? And you should be able to always connect what you read to this sort of general format for science passages, okay? Not all science passages will have everything in that sequence or whatever, but you should still know what the most typical science passage sequence is and try to connect everything to it. All right, so that's those are my tips for the science passages. All right, guys, that's good for office hours. We had a lot of people join in today. That was fun, guys. I'm actually kind of curious which countries you joined in from. Today, it's probably too late to ask you guys, but we have friends from Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, and those are the only guys who actually specifically pointed out where they were from. Oh no, I forget. But hey, we have an international crew going, and so the more I understand what your needs are, the better I can kind of tune my advice for you guys. So just let me know any background detail whenever you guys ask me a question about your struggles. Any detail helps. Okay, like what your current score is, what you want to get to, when you want to take the test, where you're from, what your English background is. All of that stuff actually helps me understand your situation a lot better. All right, guys, that's it for me. Have a good day, guys, and I will see you in the next one.